Okay, so welcome everyone. So today we are going to be looking into the first item on our outline for this research training, and we're going into understanding the brief. Understanding the brief, and if time permits, we'll also go a little bit into the research writing process. So by way of explanation, just as the name implies, understanding the brief literally means our ability to select or analyze the question, know what is expected of us, and design an outline for what it's going to look like, right? So that's basically what brief analysis is. And so there are some key things we need to consider when we are seeing our brief. I explained last time that a brief is the document that contains the instruction. So most of the times, if it's a research for maybe academic purposes, it's more like an assignment. There will be an explanation of what is required of the researcher. That's a brief. If it's an article or publication for a journal, most times the instruction is in the journal. They have a template, an outline of what should be done. That's also the brief. If it's a dissertation or thesis, they may not be specific brief, but there'll be guidelines. So all of these things, in whichever way they come, is what we define or identify as the brief. And so our first responsibility is to understand it, know what is expected, and then draw out a blueprint for it. Now, the blueprint is more like a skeleton of what it should look like at the end of the day. So I'm going to just I'm going to show us a brief, and then we are going to analyze it together. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen now. Okay, please let me know if you can see my screen. Please, I would like to know if you can see my screen.
Can see it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, so this is a brief. Now, all briefs will not come in this form. They may not always look like this, but then the point is, it's just a set of instructions. Now, for this assignment, it's a psychology assignment, so we can have briefs on different fields of practice. The rules still remain the same most of the times, as long as you follow the instruction, but the research rules are basically the same thing across all fields. So if you look at this brief, this is the psychology 221 is like the title, and then we have part 1, and we have in this part 1 we have about 4 questions, and then we have part 2, right? Okay, so if we look at it, the part 1 says the goal of this part of the assignment is to encourage you to integrate some of the ideas discussed in class on child development by answering questions on a video about feral children. After watching the video posted on feral children, answer the questions below, right? So the rest is just stories, but then you must name and student number that's granted for the end result, and then you need to answer each question in 2 paragraphs. Do not write more. So this brief covers all of these sub questions. So before I go into the details, I would like this class to be interactive. I would like to hear your thoughts first. So I want us to identify anything you see in this part that I read that you need to take down. So you can unmute and identify that. Alvina, Jacinta, Chiamaka, do you see any that you can identify? You're welcome, Juliet. Okay, so Alvin, I'm calling on you now to actually check. Can you hear me,
I'm
please?
sorry, ma, please can you come again on what exactly we are looking for?
Okay, so this is part 1, right? I read it out, right? And so I want us to point out key things we should note from this assignment before I go into it. From this part 1, this brief, what are the things that must be noted in this? So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, the instruction clearly states that the answers should not be more than two paragraphs. So that's a key point to note when answering the questions or when doing the research.
Okay, that's very true. That's very correct, but it's for each question. So for each question, it must not be more than 2 paragraphs. Okay, that's one. Did anyone notice any other key important factor to take into consideration? Did anyone note anything? Jacinta, Shamaka, please, did you note any other thing from this first paragraph, part 1?
Not serious.
Okay, okay. Shamaka, did you note any?
That's my opinion.
Okay, Chiamaka, you're still muted. Okay, fine. I'll go ahead and explain. I wanted to see how much we could appreciate so that I would go deeper, but it's fine. So the first thing is the goal of these assignments. What's the goal? It says is to encourage you to integrate some of the ideas discussed in class. So first things first, you cannot do this assignment without getting those ideas discussed in class. So if you're given this brief, the first question you should be asking whoever is giving it to you, what are the ideas that were discussed in class? Because you need to integrate it. And so at the end of the day, if those ideas are not integrated in answering the question, then the goal of the assignment is not met. And then it says there's a video. So that's very important. We also need to watch that video and take notes as we are watching the video. That's for this assignment. I think this is one of the very few assignments where I really have to watch a video. Most of the times it's just the instructions are written down. But then, yes, this has a video and an article to work with, right? And then just like Alvina said, each answer to a question must not be more than 2 paragraphs. Now that is the general brief that applies to the whole of this part 1. Then if we go into each of the questions, we have to appreciate and analyze each of the questions too, just so that we score every point on it. The first question says the video, so I'm going to do the first one and we will do the second one, the third one, and like that. So I'm going to do this first one to start off, and then I'll leave it open for us to do the next one. I will move that way so that I really want us to be immersed in it so that if you have questions by trying it, if some of your questions to be answered and it to be easier to relate to, right? So please be very participative. It's the fastest way to learn on this virtual session. Okay, so the video suggests that the feral children case studies provide us with a window into understanding the role of genes and environment in human development. Explain why. Be specific in your answer using a minimum of 2 peer-reviewed journal articles as reference to support your positions. Explain what the nature versus nurture issue is. Then explain how feral children provide us with information on these debates. So, you see this first place. This is the first thing. Now, the video suggests this. This is what the video is suggesting, but you cannot write without more like giving at least one sentence to summarize the video's position on this, right? That's the first thing to do. And then after that is done, the next thing is to explain why. So I'm going to do another color, explain why. So after putting one sentence or two, but I think one because that's not the core, explaining why is one thing we need to do here. So we have to explain why feral children case studies provide a window, depending on what the video is about. Now, the video, just to give us an insight, feral children are more like children that didn't grow up with in the right social environment. Perhaps they didn't have parents to take care of them. And as a result, they grew up like, without care, with like animals. Some of them grow with dogs and they behave like dogs. Some of them have been in isolation. So it's just, the whole video is all about that. So we explain why the video is suggesting that. It may not be explanation of the video itself, but then the point is explaining why the case studies that we explain of feral children is a window to understanding the role of genes and environment. So what is expected here? You ask yourself, oh, they are trying to say, usually it's not about the genes, it's not about who gave birth to this child, but then it's about the environment. How did they grow? Were they isolated? These are the kind of issues that will come out from this explain why. So be specific in your answer. You have to give your exact answer, not either here or either there. You said this is why. So make sure we use 2 peer-reviewed literature, minimum. Now, whenever we see minimum, it means this is the least you can do, obviously, right? And then that's the least we can do. That's the very least we can do. So you can use 3, you can use 4, you can use 5. But since you are writing 2 paragraphs, one thing is to understand the place of balance in writing. You can't do too much. Remember, a research is saying, I am a girl because A and B support this assertion that I am a girl, but your voice needs to be heard. So while you're using peer-reviewed articles, don't use it so much that your own voice is not heard. The researcher is just leveraging on other sources to amplify the researcher's thought. So first of all, there must be a thought of the researcher that is being amplified by the article. So while they say minimum of 2, it's advisable to do 2, 3, 4. I think anything more will be too much for this particular question. And I'm sure, okay, when we go into reference, I'm going to talk about how to use the rare. It's not about just quoting, and there's a way to actually use it to support. And then this also is here, explain what the nature versus nurture is. Explain nature versus nurture. Ah, this is too dark. Let me find something light. Okay, yeah. Explain what nature versus nurture is. This is another one. Right? Then explain how feral children provide us with information and debates. Right? So now once this is done, once this step, what I've done here is just to analyze what I need to do in this work. The research has now started. This is, in fact, if you get it right at this point, it's easier because you know exactly what you're doing. So I have 1, 2, 3 peer review that I won't count it as 3 in terms of what I'm writing, but it's just a guide, right? So I'll count the yellow, the green, the ash, and the blue. So 4 key areas I need to capture in these 2 paragraphs. So you can decide to capture the first 2 in the first paragraph, capture the second 2 in the second paragraph. So what are the 4 things? One is just an intro, that explains the suggestion of the video that feral children provides understanding into the role of genes and environment, right, in human development. The second one is an explanation. Now, in explaining it, you give your view, you support it with literature, you give examples. Those are the various ways to just point out why, and then explain what the nature and nurture issue is. So this is a debate. That's a debate being referred to. So in research, there are two sides. So there's nature, there's nurture. So there's an argument, there's a debate. So you explain what the debate is all about. For example, in this particular scenario, nature says, well, a person's environment is actually what determines how the person behaves and develops, such as feral children. Even if they were given birth by humans and they are left alone, isolated, and live in the woods, like Tarzan, you know, the famous Tarzan, yeah. So they behave like that. That's nature. While nurture is more like family, by gene and all of that. Sorry, I swapped it. I mean, nature is by their gene, while nurture is where they're developed. That's environment around them. So you explain what that debate is all about. You maybe point out one view from here to support to another person from here to support key people, and then you are now explain how the feral children gives information, just like I explained now. The Tarzan story, those with, you know, just explain, and that's basically it. That is how this is done. I don't know if I'm clear. Does anyone understand what I've done?
Yeah, yes. I think I understand this explanation that you just did. Even though I'm just joining, I don't know if I've missed any of the parts of the meeting. But for these few ones that I listen, I think I understand what you're trying to explain.
Okay, thank you. Just to carry along, we said with brief analysis. So this is a brief. We are taking an example of, and we said in analyzing a brief is just to understand what is required of us. This is just practically what I'm doing with this first example here. So this is the first. Alvina, Chiamaka, are we on the same page? Do we
Yes, ma'am.
also
Yes, ma'am.
understand?
I understand it so far. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to call on someone to attempt the second one. Okay. So I'm going to call on you, Juliet. Just try. I'll highlight for you. You can read it out however you want to go. Let's do it together.
Okay, using one of the case studies discussed in the video, explain how the concept of early experience applies to your chosen case. Okay. Should I read it complete before trying to elaborate it, or I should just
However
say
you
it?
decide, whichever works for you, but most times it might be best to capture the whole element and then begin to analyze. But whatever works for you.
Okay, I think better that way too. Okay, so let me start from the beginning again and run through it before analyzing it. So using one of the case studies discussed in the video, I don't know the video, but I think it's these feral children.
Yes.
Okay. So using one of the case study discussed in the video, explain how the concept of early experience applies to your chosen case. Use a minimum of one per review journal article to support your point. Be specific. Giving examples from the case. It should be clear in your answer that you understand how early experience influence development using specific examples of your case. Okay, let me take it one sentence from the other. Using one of those case studies discussed in the video, explain how the concept of early experience applies to your chosen case. Okay, I think this particular sentence or this particular place I read is trying to, okay, how we can analyze or we can draw a conclusion based on the video, like the
Okay.
case study of the video. I don't know.
Okay.
Yes, yes, to explain how it affects or how it applies to the choosing case, like the case study of these feral children from the video. I've not watched the video, but let me assume based on your first explanation of the first paragraph, like how the concept of early experience affect the children. Okay. Um.
You may not need to go into the details as though you're answering it. I just want to know that you can pick out the things that you should make sure you don't miss out.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. It's analysis.
Okay.
We are not really answering it, just to be able to analyze and know what exactly is important that you bear in mind. Yeah.
Yes, the concepts. For me, I will highlight the explain how the concept of the early experience affects the children's topic. Yeah, that's for the first sentence there. Yeah, it needs to be highlighted. We need to
Okay.
find how to explain, yes, how to explain the concepts and
Okay.
as how it affects the early experience applied in the choosing case. That's the referral children. We have to explain the concept, how the early experience applies to it. So that's the
Okay.
first one.
Okay.
Then the second, we use a minimum of one per view journal to support the point. Yes, we need to find a journal that will support that particular point that we've drawn from the video.
Okay. So you highlight that as well.
Yes, ma'am, please. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other one?
Yes. Giving an example from the case. Being specific, giving an example from the case. Like I think there should be an example from the case of the feral children from the video. I think I should highlight this giving example from the case too.
Okay. Okay. Any other? Oh, that's all.
Yeah, I think that's all. The other
Okay.
one is explanatory, yes.
Okay. That's fine. That's noted. Okay. Any other additions or disagreement? I just want to hear our thoughts. Alvina, Chemaka, what do you think? Can we hear me? Alvina, Chemaka.
Yes, ma'am. I'm still trying to see if there's anything I can add
Okay.
in the paragraph.
Okay, Chemaka, what about you?
I stepped out for a while and I'm just joining in between, but I think she did justice to it. I think so. I don't think there's anything to add. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to say well done, Juliet. You really did well to be able to pick out all of this. It's an indication that my explanation was actually good enough. Thank you. But one thing I will add is this first line. I'm going to add this because it says, ouch, that's too black. It says using one of the case studies. It means that there are more. So you have to be sure that you are using just one. So that's just the only thing I'll add. Other than that, every other thing is on point. Okay? Thank you so much, Juliet. Well done. So we are going to the third one. I'll be calling on Migo Alvina. Please do the analysis for the third one. And then Chiamaka, you do for the fourth.
Okay, I'm going to read through the question and analyze.
Okay.
So, choosing a different case from question 2. Explain how the critical period or sensitive period applies to an area of development. It should be clear from your answer that you understand what a critical or sensitive period is. giving specific reference to an area of development discussed in the case study. In addition, you should use the minimum of one peer-reviewed journal article to support your points. Okay, so the first thing I'm seeing here is that you have to use a different case study. So you can highlight there. You
Okay.
can't use the same case study that you used in question 2.
Okay, that's noted.
Yes. Then you have to use the case study you choose to explain how critical period and sensitive period applies to an area of development. So you can highlight that too, please. The critical or sensitive period, yes.
You mean the critical or sensitive period, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I feel like this part of explain how the critical and sensitive period applies to an area of development. What this implies that you have to understand what a critical period or sensitive period is, which is already indicated in the second sentence. So
Okay,
you can
so
highlight
what do you want me to
understand what
highlight?
a critical
Okay.
or sensitive period is.
Okay. Let me change that for
Okay,
you.
then giving a
Yeah, go on.
okay, then giving specific reference to an area of development discussed in the case study. So you have to give a specific reference to the area of development case study. Yeah.
Okay, so highlight that too.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Then minimum of one peer-reviewed journal article, just as a guide.
Okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all. Any additions, Juliet, Chiamaka, do you have any thoughts? Think anything she missed out?
Okay, I think the last one should be use a minimum of one per review journal article to support your point. I think you should go through to the full stop. The last sentence there should be highlighted to my understanding, rather than just use a minimum of one per view. It's
Okay.
not a complete sentence. Yes.
Okay, I think your emphasis is the fact that the review has to support the points, right? I,
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes. That's my point.
yeah, that's granted. You should support the points, but I think she meant that too.
Yes.
Yeah, but then
Maybe
you're
Yes,
right.
I did. I meant
maybe
that.
you didn't
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
it.
I'm sure. Yeah, but I like the emphasis, Juliet, because it's not just using one, it's to support your point, right? So you must have points before you support. So that makes it nice too. So yes, I agree with you just for the purpose of emphasis, but I know that Alvina meant so too. Okay, Chiamaka, what do you think, please?
I think it's okay. Oh, I don't know. It's cool. She pointed out actually important points that need to be addressed. So I think she did well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Alvina, well done. You did a great job. Looks awesome. Wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am.
The only thing I'm going to point out is you didn't emphasize this or. I just needed you to be sure that you were using one, not the both. That clarity is very important. So I don't know if you
Okay,
meant
ma'am.
that, but then I think that should be emphasized, especially since they put it in caps, so they won't take no for an answer. Okay, so that's
Okay,
that
ma'am.
for it. And then the last one, Chiamaka, please, can do number 4.
Okay, oh, I'll try. So
Yes,
the last
please.
one says, I'm going to read, then I'll do the something.
Yeah.
Choosing a different case study from questions 2 and 3, identify the stage of cognitive development according to Piaget's stages the child must be in, and discuss how the child in your case has not reached the normal milestones for this stage. Be specific, outlining the key cognitive abilities. Piaget says a child in that stage should have, and give examples, specifically from your chosen case study, which demonstrates they are deficient in these abilities. Wow. Okay, so I think the first thing is that we should highlight the fact that we are using a different case study other than questions, start of questions 2 and 3. So
Okay.
we should highlight that.
Okay, done.
So our case study should be different. Then next, identify the stage of cognitive development according to Piaget's stage that the child should be in. Okay, I think we should do the identification. We identify the stage of cognitive development according to Piaget's stages the child should be in, and discuss how the child in your case has not reached the normal milestone for this age. Yes, please. We should
So
also highlight discussing how the child has not reached the normal milestone.
okay.
You guys should be helping me. I don't know.
You're
Okay, so
almost there.
wait. Let me see the next line. Be specific.
Okay, so let me take it up from here. So yes, I like the fact that she differentiated that identifying the stage of cognitive development according to the Piaget stages. So it's not just identifying them, it has to be according to the stages by this renowned author, and then discussing the case. That's the case study, discussing how the child in the case study has not reached the normal milestone, right? So it's another thing it says here is the specific outlining the key cognitive abilities that the author says a child in that stage should have, right? That's another thing. And then not just that, give examples from the chosen case study which demonstrates that. So you see that it's easier to just analyze like this. We're on the same page, right? Is there any challenge,
ma'am.
any questions so far based on this? Any
No, ma'am.
questions, anything that's not clear?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So once that is done, the same thing applies to the way we did part 1 is the way we do part 2. But then there are some questions we've not seen. The referencing style, we have to check. So apart from understanding the question, you ask yourself, what is the referencing style that is required? What is the referencing style? What's the word count? These are questions. But now in this particular one, there is no word count, but they said 2 paragraphs. So you can write any words as long as they are in 2 paragraphs. Then there's something that's important. It says it must be in APA style. When we get to referencing, I'm going to teach us about the APA or APA style of referencing alongside others. So that's it. Another thing that is, you see here, title page, 1 mark, APA reference page, 1 mark, in-text citations. But when we come to reference, we are going to learn the in-text citations and we are going to learn all of that. But this is basically it. So other things are not here. You ask yourself, how do you organize this? How do you organize this? So most times you're not expected to write the questions. So maybe you write question 1, or maybe you put the subtitle, right? Or the title. For instance, for this, you can decide to say, let's do something. Okay, so for question 1, if we are supposed to write the outline, right? Chiamaka, you're welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to join and it was
It's okay.
kicking me
So,
out and
first off, I must commend you. You did a great job. You were going smoothly and excellently. So what I had just concluded for you, but I was certain that you were going to capture this. Okay, so I added this and this, which was where you stopped. I hope you had these were the same things you had in mind, or did you have something else in mind?
I think I just have to look at it again but I think mine looks like it's quite simpler. So it should be. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Okay, so now we're just explaining drawing our outline. Remember I said, once you understand it, you now know the outline of your work, right? You now know the outline, how you're going to write. So generally, first things first is, how would you write this? This is not a report. When we go into writing, I think I'm going to take us through the writing process in the next class. We'll shift the other one down because it's very important we do that so we don't miss it. So when we're going to the writing, I'll explain better differences between essays, reports, and all of that in form and structure. But now the point is, how would you present this? There are two parts. So if I was to write this, right? First things first, we'll have a part 1, right? This is like your answer sheet, so to say part 1. And then you could do question 1, and then you don't need to put the full detail, but you have to let them know what you're talking about. Or you just talk about understanding the rules of, you just pick this as a heading, right? Okay. Okay. So this is your heading for part 1. Now, you now write your 2 paragraphs that contains all of what we have explained here, right? So we can do paragraph 1 and 2, paragraph 3 and 4, however you decide here in line. So the same thing happens to all. So at the end of the day, we'll have question 1, question 2, right? There are four questions in this part 1. Question 3, with our answers actually in paragraphs. Question 4, right? Question 4, with all of whatever we are saying that is happening and is not happening. Put all of that down there. Okay, so this is more like our skeleton sketch. And then question 4. So once you have this, you're going to have part 2, but this should be in a new page. Part 2, there are a lot of questions in part 2. We are not going to do it again because it's more like what we have done in part 1, like in the question analysis. So, but what you just bear in mind that your questions will determine what is important. So if you want to draw the skeleton, what you can do is to just pick out these 4 things, put in subtitles or bullet points, this. Just the way you've outlined it here, one after the other, right? You put that under each of the questions, the question 1, the question 2, and then you begin to answer them based on what we have highlighted here. So as of right, these things we highlighted are what we are supposed to have under each of these questions for our skeleton. So you just pick it, this 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you're answering, you just answer in line with that. I don't know if it's making sense.
I'm kind of confused
Okay.
because the question 1 you understand the role of gene and environment in human development. You repeated it in 4 places, the same
Okay, yeah.
thing.
These ones are just not to kill our time, but for each question, we'll pick out the particular subtopic. So I just did this because just for purposes of explanation. But when you're doing your outlining, for this number 2, it will be the concept of early experience. Something like this. It should be depending on, by the time you read your question, you know exactly what the problem is. Shamaka, thank you, but you could undo. Thank you. Okay, so for this, right? So it depends on the topic for that particular question. Then this, what I'm saying for the outline, just like a skeleton. Remember when we used to draw skeleton those days? So just the skeleton is now in this question 1. Let me do the skeleton for question 1, just so that we are. So this is question 1. I'll just copy all of this to make it easy. Since we have already highlighted it, right? We'll just take all the things you have highlighted. Okay. Question 1 is this. Question 2. Sorry, question 1 is this. So these are the key. These 2 minimum articles, you can just put it at the end. It's not part of the content in terms of, yes, you're going to have articles, right? But what I mean is, it's not what you're explaining. So I'll just take that out, but you can bear it in mind in the end of the work. This and this, right? So do we all agree that these are the 4 things, the 4 key areas to talk about in this question 1?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So once you're able to do this, you find that your research is easy, because when you're going to now get the papers, all you're looking for is researching what nature versus nurture is, how fair, just this, and that's good. So you do the same for all of them first. When you do the same for all the 4 questions, you see that you have your outline. So this is how your outline should flow. In some cases, if it's a report now, I would have been doing, okay, usually you can do introduction. Some people like, it's most important to always have an introduction, right? And conclusion. No matter what you do, every point should have an introduction and a conclusion, okay? So you have introduction, this, that, and then, so whatever you're doing, whenever you're writing any paragraph, any question, always have an introduction and the conclusion. So if it was a report, you'll be seeing things like 1.1, 1.0, 2.0, but then this is an essay, so we don't need that. We don't even need to write introduction and conclusion. It's just in your mind, but this is just to guide you. It's like a skeleton. Okay? So this is how we drew our outline. Once you get the questions, you do the analysis. The analysis forms part of what you use to form the outline or the structure. I don't know if it's clear. If there are questions we'd like to ask, just to clarify on this.
May I have a question
Please
concerning
go
this
ahead.
question 1? So can we use the first key outline, the first key highlight as part of our introduction, because it's kind of like introducing you into what the video is about before you now explain what the role of genes and environment in human development is. So can we just use like a kind of summary of the video as our introduction
Yes.
in this question 1?
Yes,
Okay.
because this particular first one we highlighted, it's more like explaining what you should do, right? So yes, but it's not like that for others, just to clarify in case any other person is thinking. So this question 1 is different from question others, okay? So for this one, yes, because that's the more like, that's the proposition, okay? That's the proposition, so you can start with that. Your introduction should just set
Okay,
the
thank
tone
you,
for
ma'am.
what you're doing. So if that suits the bill, then it's fine. For this particular one,
Okay, ma'am.
yes, it's okay. Any other questions, please?
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions, please? Okay, so I'll take it that we all understand how to analyze, understand our brief. What did I say a brief is? Who remembers what the brief is all about? As we wrap this session up. Does anyone have an idea of what the brief is all about?
The brief just contains like what the person that's giving the work to do, what they want you to do. It can include the referencing style, like what exactly they want that work to contain and how they want it to flow. That's basically the brief.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and then I said there are key things we are doing in this analysis, in this brief analysis. So we talked about the importance of understanding the brief, which is analyzing each of the ingredients of the brief to know what is expected, and then forming an outline. So the outline, this outline that we did here, is the end result of your brief analysis. This should be the outcome of every brief analysis. So depending on what you're writing, for reports, it will not look like this. This is just because this is an essay, right? So at the end of the brief analysis, this is what is important. This is what is important. Okay, so I believe we are clear on that. Are we all clear on this?
Yes, ma. I want to ask something. You said this pattern is just for essay,
Yeah,
not for uh
reports.
sports. Yes. Okay.
And most of the times, your brief will tell you what it is, whether it's an essay or report. So this brief, if you look at it, it's an essay because it's more like it just says write in paragraph. If it was a report, to say write a report. So most times your brief will tell you what is required, what exactly you're writing on.
Okay. Okay, ma. Okay.
Yes. So that means we're all clear on this. So this, I think we can stop here for tonight. Tomorrow we are going to look into the writing process. So I'm going to drop a brief on the chat message, our WhatsApp platform, so that we can look at it, analyze it, and come up with an outline. It's going to be a very small brief, not to take our time. I know we all have a lot of things to read, something, maybe one paragraph or two, one paragraph, just to analyze and come up with an outline. I believe that's okay, so that we'll be sure that we've actually achieved something today. Is that okay?
Okay, ma. So where are we going
Yes,
to
ma.
write out when you send
You
it to
can
the
just,
platform?
yes, you can just send it to me.
After writing it in a book, we'll just snap it and send it to you.
If you want to write in a book, fine. If you want to just type it on your phone, fine. However you choose to go ahead.
Okay.
It works for
Okay.
me. I just really want to see that the analysis is done and the outline is ready.
Yeah, ma. All right. Understood.
Okay. So feedback, just before we go, I'm going to stop sharing now.